Okay, we're live. Charles Moscowitz here on YouTube
Uh,
and
uh,
subscribe. Can you hear me okay, David?
yeah, but I wanted to talk to you. Have
Yeah.
you seen this? I don't
Peaceful
know.
death threats. Oh my. That's looks like the kind of a
Bosch has made a book out of all the death threats he's got from joining Muhammad. Got to hide this.
yeah, we bet yeah, let's we'll get flagged on YouTube for that one too. I mean, that's a tough one.
Yes.
David, you need no introduction on my show. Everybody that, we know that you're one of the great conservative thinkers of this century. I compare you to Whittaker Chambers. You're blowing the whistle on the left. You've just reissued your great autobiography, Radical Son, with a new introduction. It's a book that had a big impact on my thinking, and I urge people to check it out. Now, David, before we get into that, though, I have to ask you about news, and this is a current event show, and the election steal. Where do you think the president stands at this point, and in terms of stopping the steal?
Wow.
Well, it's not an easy
I don't know.
question.
I really don't know. Look, we're in a battle for the life of this country, is what this is about. And there are a lot of weak-kneed Republicans. It's unreal.
Mm,
But Trump's got an iron. I don't. I'm just in awe of Trump's ability to withstand the heat, as it were. And what he's
yeah,
doing is the right thing to fight this election. This is a stolen election.
right.
You have to believe in fairy tales to believe that Joe Biden
Oh yeah.
got 81 million votes.
Everyone knows it too, and most people, the left doesn't care, or
No,
they want to just ride it out. They want to dribble the ball to the finish line.
yeah. And then there's a tactical difference. I mean, I see the New York Post is thrown in the towel, which is a big disappointment.
Yeah, that's right.
But some people think that it's the better politics is to go along with a stolen election. I don't think that's the case. Resistance is what we need. And this criminal, I wrote 20 years ago uh, in a book, How to Beat the Democrats. I described the Democrat Party as a coalition of communists and crooks. The moderates, the crooks are the moderates.
Mm,
They just want power. So they're somewhat realistic. That's why Biden has pulled back, thank goodness, on immigration policies and other things, enraging the delusional left. The delusional left does want power, and they will kill you if they get the power or put you in the gulag if you don't go along with their programs. But they want it for this delusional end that there's going to be a world of social justice. The left is the chief force of racism and anti-Semitism in this country right now.
yes.
So how are they going to bring about a world of social justice? You have to be as delusional as they are to think that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing is that we're being taken over by a delusion, and it's almost like an alternative reality. Average people who don't know what you and I know, and who just look at the mainstream media, they have no idea what's going on.
Well, it is an alternative reality. You know, just
For sure. So, your book, Radical Son, yeah, the main question I have for you now, and I'm speaking here as a Jew who had my own family involved with communism generations ago, is why is it that Jews were attracted to communism, especially
the
Jews like our parents and grandparents who came to this great country and had opportunity and took advantage of that opportunity?
you're talking in the real world,
Yeah.
and people don't just live in the real world. They need meaning in their lives. Um, the left is a crypto religion, and you know the Jews actually invented the problem, the idea of a promised land, the idea of some kind of an earthly redemption. Um, That's a Jewish
Well,
idea.
yeah, but it was supposed to be from God, not from the communist state
Correct.
collectivizing everyone.
If you're an Orthodox Jew,
Right.
if, then you or an Orthodox Christian, you understand that the world can only be saved by a divinity. Why? Because the people who created the misery in the world are the same people who are going to be the social redeemers. And only they're going to have a lot more power. So they're going to kill and oppress and ruin the lives of a lot more people, which is this history of communism and fascism and these other chiliastic missions.
Whitaker
So,
Chambers refers to communism as the second oldest religion. He says that at the Garden of Eden, the fact that Adam and Eve partook of the forbidden fruit, they wanted to be like God. They wanted to know good and evil. They wanted to wipe clean the cloudy lens of the mystery of the universe and overthrow God in heaven. And that's what the communist movement
were
ever since
criminals.
then.
They were criminals, and that's
Yes.
the problem.
And that's our ancestor.
And the story of the Tower of Babel is another one, another
That's right.
of the left, building a tower to heaven without a divine intervention. There's an angel with a flaming sword at the gates of Eden to keep people out.
Right. And that the idea of trying to overthrow God and trying to create this earthly utopia is unnatural because human beings are not perfect. We never will be until there is some divine
Worse,
intervention.
worse, they want to do evil. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what the Garden of Eden story is about. I mean, it was better than the Green New Deal. You know, people didn't die. You got the fruit falling from the trees, no pain in childbirth. But the one condition is you can't want to do evil.
You know, we're all tempted to do evil every so often. I mean, people to want to take advantage of situations. Nations were built on doing evil. I mean, there's a history of genocides and, forced famines. I mean, this isn't unique to communism. It's part of human nature. But it's our job to try to identify that evil when we can and kind of put it back on its heels, at least,
Yeah, I actually talk about the Garden of Eden in Radical Sun.
Mm-hmm.
First thing when I saw that the left was an evil force, I did partly because of the murder of my friend by the Black Panther Party.
Yes.
But also by the success of the left in driving America out of Vietnam. When the communists came in, they proceeded to slaughter 2.5 million Indo-Chinese peasants, and there wasn't one demonstration against that. And then I saw the left, it's based on big lies, Hitlerian lies. They didn't care about the Vietnamese. They weren't anti-war. They wanted to destroy America.
Indeed, I think you quoted Tom Hayden, who said that if there wasn't a Vietnam, they would have had to have invented one.
Yeah, they used Vietnam just the way the Democrats just used the COVID virus to destroy Trump or to try to destroy him.
That's right. So you have this insidious.
The same evil.
Now, David, talk about your parents a little bit, because I have had relatives like them. When I read this, it reminded me they're unrepentant communists right up to the very end. They really, in the face of all contradictory information, they still clung to this belief, and they never. It was like they existed in an iron cage.
Well, it's because you lose your identity. Everything that made you feel good about yourself is invested in this lie. And so to see that it's a lie is personally, I described this in Radical Sun.
Yeah.
The day that I realized, that Marxism is a crock, was completely false. And it took me down from this height I was on. Here I was, a Marxist theoretician, having the key to the problems of the world right at the center of history. And it all went flat like a desert, and it went dark in front of me when I saw this happening and when I realized that. And I realized I phrased it, I was just a piece of human dust marching to oblivion with all the rest of humanity. So radicals are permanently intoxicated people. They're acting like gods. They're going to remake the world. They're going to change 5,000 years of human history and create this earthly paradise. If you actually believe that, and they do, what crime would you not commit or support, and what lie would you not tell to advance that cause? And
No,
that's
they're perfectly justified in lying. In fact, lying is the very core action of their belief.
That's why progressives are the authors and supporters and enablers of the worst evils in human history.
And that the whole idea of the lie is at the very core of their belief system, because what they believe in is a lie. And in order to maintain the scaffolding of that lie, you have to learn how to lie. And so you have this incredible, elaborate ability to lie about just about anything that I think is internalized at a certain point, and that people are no longer even aware of it. It's just the way they look at the world. It's how they operate.
We're in the midst of one of the worst racial hoax in the history of probably the planet, with Black Lives Matter. Yeah. All these criminals resisting arrest, sometimes killed by Black police officers, and it all goes into this myth of systemic racism against Black people, which is idiotic. Just the fact that Blacks are called marginalized and therefore oppressed. Blacks aren't marginalized. They're at the center of the nation's attention. Just turn on your TV, for crying out tears, and see everything that's devoted to celebrating Black people and portraying them as always victims and never perpetrators, and all the privileges. The only skin privilege in America, a serious one, is Black skin privilege. Yeah, you get jobs, you get into elite universities, you get a pass. If you're O.J. Simpson, they don't convict you. I mean, come on.
It's a great time to be Black in America. This is why you get a lot of these white people claiming to be Black. Right. And also, I mean, this past weekend, there was 58 shootings in Chicago, predominantly Black people, including 3 children. I don't hear a peep out of the left about that. No one's talking about it.
Oh, because they can't make it into their myth. They can't. It doesn't go to support their myths. The police, first of all, if you just look, I was watching this Netflix video about Sam Cooke, which is pretty good. A little overstated. The FBI is, without any grounds, portrayed as villains. I mean, they were guilty in that they didn't investigate the murder of Sam Cooke, which was a great tragedy. But, Malcolm X was killed by Louis Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad. But if you look, all the police were all white. The police chiefs, now all the police chiefs are Black, for crying out tears.
That's right.
Well, all these cities, we're alleged to have systemic racism against Blacks are running the show.
And they're all liberal cities. Exactly. These are so-called progressive cities like Minneapolis.
Run by Black racists who are lining their own pockets at the expense of their own people.
It's very corrupt, and they run the voting machines in places like Detroit, and they feel perfectly entitled to shut away observers and steal an election because they think they're on the right side.
If you're Black, you would be enraged all the time against white people, thanks to the New York Times and the Washington Post and all these so-called liberals who are anything but.
Yes, indeed. But I think it's changing. I think that Trump got double the Black vote that he got last time, including with Black women. And probably if you take away the fraud, it was a lot more than that.
Yes, I agree with that, 100%.
So there you have it. Now, David, talk a little bit about, you were a prominent left-winger in the early to mid 1960s, late 1960s, with Ramparts magazine, with all of your incredible books. And then something happened. I want you to tell my listeners what happened.
Well, I bought are myths. I thought that the police were racist, oppressors. I thought that they were persecuting the Black Panthers who were, I went along with Hayden's, they're the vanguard of the revolution, America's Viet. Well, I wouldn't have said Viet Cong because I hated the communists even when I was a leftist.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought into all that. And then, I discovered that there were a murderous street gang and they had killed more than a dozen Black people who got away with it. They murdered the head of the Black Student Union at Laney College, because he looked at them crosswise.
Mm.
Nothing
Yeah, it's
more.
like a mafia group. I mean, they really were street thugs.
They were thugs.
Yeah. And they were shaking people down. I mean, they were behaving like a mob. I mean,
yes.
Basically. I mean, a lot of the Black Lives Matter people now get all this huge amount of money pouring in. Who knows where the money ends up? It's a huge scam. And I mean, I'm not comparing necessarily, but with the Black Panthers, they were outright thugs. I mean, they were shaking people down just no different than La Cosa Nostra.
Yes. And the Black Lives Matter is the same.
Yeah, probably.
Well, they sued. Look at all the damage all the looting and the damage, and it's all justified by this mythological white racism.
One of the strangest things I've seen, here you have them looting Black businesses, burning Black neighborhoods, killing Black people, and this is a response to systemic racism?
Well, obviously, the only systemic racism in America, there's two kinds. One is affirmative action, is systemic racism, pure and simple.
Yes.
And the other is the failed public schools, which for 40 years have been failing and are totally controlled by the Democrat Party and run for the adults. That's systemic racism. But otherwise, if there was this police departments were systemically racist, there would be thousands of suits. There are thousands of Black lawyers, thousands of Black prosecutors, police chiefs, judges, city council, mayors. Why aren't there suits? Because it doesn't exist. It's outlawed. Anyway, systemic racism has been outlawed by the Civil Rights Act. So there are no suits because there's no evidence of it. It's just rhetoric.
And also, it's safe to say that the left has, since the 1960s.
Democrat Party.
Yes.
The Democrat Party is a racist party. And that's why Joe Biden says is that, one of his number one challenges is ending systemic racism.
Yeah, I mean, they've done more damage to the Black community since the 60s than old Jim Crow racism. They've damaged the Black family. They've damaged Black education, entrepreneurialism, Black church, Black faith. And now the only people left to do anything to help intervene, particularly in the poorer neighborhoods, are the police.
Yeah, which is why 80% of Blacks want the police, want more police.
That's right. So, and yet they are talking about defunding them, and they are apparently quietly defunding police departments all over the country.
Oh. Yeah, the cities, people.
No, exactly. So now you are one of the leaders of the right, of conservatism. Where do you think we are as conservatives at this point, especially as we confront the stolen election?
We're in the midst of a transformation of the Republican Party, thanks to Donald Trump. This is the first time in my lifetime, and probably ever, that we've had a conservative mass movement in America, grassroots movement. When I first came into the right 40 years ago, I looked around and said, where's the ground army? The left has all these organizations. They all have issues. They all work together when it comes to the revolution. But on the right, there's nothing. You couldn't get 3 conservatives to march together. They would look at each other and say, what are we, collectivists? Until the Tea Party. And then the Tea Party was sort of narrowly focused on traditional conservative concerns, budgets, things like that. But Trump has broken it out of all that. And now I mean, he got 50,000 people came to Butler, Pennsylvania for a rally. So
Oh, yeah.
conservatives hate politics, so they always want the Supreme Court to solve a problem. Well, you can see the Supreme Court is a bunch of cowards.
Yeah, very corrupt.
Yeah, and these are the most principled jurists. Let's remember that. They were selected from lists supplied by the Federalist Society. The most principled
Terrible.
conservatives that
One
only,
thing I've learned from this whole thing is how corrupt our independent judiciary actually is.
yeah,
I mean,
but
not just them, but all across the board.
you can't solve the indoctrination, that hate America, hate white people indoctrination that's going on in the schools, not to mention gender fluidity and other child abuse things.
Right. Nope, you're freezing up a bit on me,
You
David.
can't change
Maybe it was
that from
the
one issue, which is really serious. It could have, they could have affected, well, they certainly affected the election. They could have been decisive, or Facebook. Why isn't there a mass sit-in at Twitter headquarters making their lives miserable with the demand, stop the censorship? That would in itself be a political statement of tremendous force. So conservatives
indeed.
aren't there yet, but
No, they aren't.
gonna
But I
get
will
there
say
in
on
the
a
next
positive
years.
element on that, there are some conservative or more free-oriented tech venues coming up. You've got Rumble and Minds and Gab and Parler.
created an alternative universe, but that's what conservatives do. That's how AEI got formed. That's how Heritage got formed. They surrendered the universities to the left and then created their own universe. I think what's more significant is that there are some congressmen, Louis Gohmert's
Lou Gohmert, yeah.
Getz and Pauly and people like that who are going to fight.
And I think it's key to watch. It's still not over, and I'm still not even going to discuss what Biden is going to do because I'm not there yet. But I think on January 6th, Congress reconvenes. It is a new Congress. It's more conservative, and they are going to hold a tally on the electors. And at that point, apparently, if one House member and one senator in writing challenges any state, then the whole thing goes into debate in the states. Now there's something like 30 congressmen who have said that they're going to sign this. They only need one senator. There's about a half a dozen of them that are talking about it. I think that that's possibly the last. That's the the final front. In this.
That's what I hope, but
Yeah.
I don't get my hopes too high because disappointment.
Yes, it has been terribly disappointing. That's for sure.
The conservative movement is in a great position to fight whatever happens.
Yes, and as you say, David, it's very heartening that there's a genuine cultural movement that is emerging that will not go away. It's going to become, if anything, even stronger if, God forbid, they are successful.
Republicans told the Rasmussen pollsters that the election was stolen. 47% of all Americans have said it. That's
Exactly.
huge numbers.
It is, and it's growing, and it's so, especially as it becomes more and more obvious every day. And now, of course, they're using the classic left-wing approach where they're throwing insult and scorn and ridicule at the opponent as if there's somehow we're a bunch of crackpots and all of that. And it's difficult to face that. Nobody likes that, but that's what we're looking at, and we have to find it.
Away.
Yeah.
You're looking for a role model. It's Donald Trump.
You bet.
Stand up, take the heat, and throw it back at them.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. And you've certainly done that, David.
Democrats are in tremendous trouble. First of all, there's going to be this push from the Kamala forces to put Hunter Biden front and center and destroy Joe and force him into retirement. You have Obama sitting in the wings there.
Yeah.
They're just going to stick it to him and say, Joe, you got to be president now. It's time to step down.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he'll last the year.
No way to appease. The film of our time was called The Long Good Friday. It was a film with Bob Hoskins, came out in 1980.
Hmm.
It's about a mafia boss in England who has this idea of holding the 1984 Olympics on the wharfs. And to do that, he has to calm them down. Of course, they're centers of crime. So he goes to America to cut a deal with the American mafia that they're going to be peace on the waterfront. And when he gets back, the whole place is exploding because when he left, his gang stole money from the IRA. So it takes him the whole film to discover that it's not another mobster, it's the IRA that's blowing things up. And he goes to the IRA to cut a deal and they kill him. And that's the lesson. You have revolutionaries, you can't negotiate with them.
No.
They're not going to be swayed from their delusional purpose.
Yeah, Biden is like Kerensky in the Bolshevik Revolution. Yeah. And I think once they get the Leninists in there, it's not going to work for them because, AOC is not going to be acceptable to the vast majority of Americans.
Russia and the criminals in the Democrat Party are very, very powerful. We're talking about J.P. Morgan and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Chase and
the top 1%, as they used to say in Occupy Wall Street, all leftists.
Yeah, they're all leftists, and they're not going to want AOC to muck it up.
No. So,
I hate Jeff Bezos too. He's a son of a bitch, but he's a marketing genius.
That's true.
I buy all my stuff from Amazon. What are you going to do?
You can't go anywhere else.
At the same day, it's so easy. I had I don't want to make this an advertisement for Amazon, but this is why they're eating the world. The retail world is being eaten up by Amazon. I ordered a floor heater, and the stupid post office. I'm home all day. They said I wasn't home, and I called the post office, and I couldn't get through, and the numbers they gave me got me nowhere. So I just went up to Amazon. There's a little chat thing, and I said my heater never arrived. Oh, we'll send you another one.
Oh yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, they do a great job with my self-published books. I can't complain. They look as good as if they were published. What can you do? So, David, let my viewers and listeners know where they can get your excellent book and what you're up to.
Sure. It's easily available at Amazon.com, or you can go up. I have a website called Horowitz Books, horowitzbooks.com. And I not only have all my books up there, but there's reviews and excerpts, and you can get an idea of what's, like I did this 9 volumes, The Black Book of the American Left.
Oh, yes.
So it's brilliant. Hefty to buy the series, but you can look at all the tables of contents and the read articles.
It's like a Talmud of the left. No, it's great, and fortunately you're a
record. I wanted there to be a record.
And you're a brilliant writer, and you're very engaging from a literary standpoint. It's easy to read. It gets right to the heart of the matter, and you have a great ability to go on a diatribe, which I admire. So, David Horowitz, as always, I want to thank you for joining me. It's a great pleasure. I wish you well, and I hope to talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Charles. Keep up the good work.
Thanks a lot.